Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. We post an interview with an amazing Canadian each weekday for your daily inspiration. Today, I would like to introduce you to my dear friend, Lara Murphy. Lara was born in St. John, New Brunswick, and has a Bachelor of Arts from Mount Allison University and a history of business startups that have fed her entrepreneurial and compassionate spirit. Lara has been married for 7 years, and in her spare time, she loves to travel, ski, garden, read, and enjoy Calgary's river path. Friends, you will find her full bio attached. Lara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Catherine.
Oh, for sure. You were on my list at the beginning.
I love it. I love it.
Maybe start with the questions that I sent you earlier this week.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, number one, and probably the most difficult for all of us, is what has been your greatest challenge in the last 2 months?
Well, I mean, I think that being a very involved Calgarian, business owner, a wife, friend, daughter, sister, niece, etc., I think the hardest part is the distance in which we've all had to function while trying to remain connected. So, you know, our normal way of going about, I mean, you and I will see each other typically at several events throughout the week, the months, and over the years. And I became so accustomed to having that community and social interaction that it was a really strange shift. I mean, we're fortunate that we have the technology that we do today, so we can still see each other's faces, have conversations. But I definitely found that with the flood, for example, what I loved so much about it was that it brought everyone together, and you could get out and really help one another and be there. So in order for us in this situation with COVID to be together, we had to be apart. And I know people have said a lot about that. And I think I know for me, it's taught me a lot along the lines of what I took for granted and what filled my cup and how I functioned within the community that I love. And that was really challenging for me to just have to step back and pick up the phone or, you know, go onto Zoom as we are today. But I'm very thankful that we do have the ability to do all that we can with technology. And I think it was just a real mind shift. You know, it's something, it just throws you a bit of a curveball that, you know, none of us ever expected. You read about, you know, the Spanish flu and different things that have happened through history. And I think somewhat naively, I never anticipated that we would be facing that type of a challenge, and particularly the connections, because as you know, Calgary is an entrepreneurial city, so vibrant and so many things happening that it just really took me a while to wrap my brain around, okay, it's another Zoom or, you know, a phone call. But the positive side is that, you know, we are able to do that, and that people shifted overnight. It just felt like everyone stepped into place and continued as best as possible. I mean, we definitely, you know, we're limping along for a bit. I know I was, but I think that was the hardest. And of course, the continual bombardment of information, the unknown. You know, I like to plan. We all like to be planners, and you realize how much you rely on that trip to the mountains or getting out and looking at travel, etc. So just really shifting our perspective and making do with what we can. I mean, I was making bread. It was so funny. I don't even recognize myself. What is happening? I had to put a halt on that because I got a little overzealous. Like the carb intake got a bit much. But yeah, just that shift to not having that physical ability to see people in person, I found really difficult.
So on that note, you remember I'm a baker.
Sorry, say again?
On that note, you remember I'm a baker.
Yes, I know, that's great.
I cannot find fake pastry flour anywhere.
Are you kidding? I'll keep an eye out. Okay.
We were on Amazon yesterday, and they're $37 for a regular size bag.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. That's insane. Yeah, see?
So insane. So now the butter tarts the leftover ones are being spread nice and thin. There's not too many being given out right now.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And what about your top 3 things that you want to share with the audience today?
Well, I think as far as the top 3, one that I've gone back to, and being a former student of history, I often studied a lot around Winston Churchill, and I've gone back to a lot of his readings and books. And during the Blitz, as you know, in the Second World War, there were 57 nights where they just were pummeled by the Germans and during the war, air raids. And one thing that Winston Churchill did was every morning he went out with his people and he walked amongst the people and the ruins and the destruction and stood above and gave his people the confidence that it would end. But 57 days and nights they went through this as a city and a community. And I found a lot of strength in that, because I think with all of us at the beginning in particular, it was a bit tricky to know really what to talk about and how to go out and be a leader and have that ability to give hope, but yet be respectful and cognizant of all of what was happening around us, where really none of us knew how bad it would get and how things would function. And I think the grief of losing what we have come to know, you know, our whole world is changing and will never look the same. So really looking at that, and one of his speeches, he talks about the end of the beginning. And I'm really thinking a lot about that these days, and the end of the beginning, but it can be positive. We have to look at those positive things and think about how we can navigate and move forward and see what we can do as a society to continue to do that, not only as a Canadian, but Albertan and as a Calgarian.
I love it.
Yeah.
And number 2?
Well, I think aside from that, I think, you know, when you see that, again, going back to the hope in crisis, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed is being on all of the Zoom calls and meetings. You get to see someone's cat walk by, or a dog, or a child scream. And I think back to some of the YouTube videos we would see in the past where someone's child would run into the room while, you know, there's a broadcast happening, and it was just the funniest thing. He went viral, and now it's really part of our everyday lives. And I think that, you know, looking and, you know, inadvertently seeing who's reading what, if you can look at bookshelves behind people and just that human content, that we're all humbled, we're all in this together, and we didn't have a choice. We were all stuck with it. And I think just seeing that ability to adapt, and for each of us to have just a bit of humor in amongst all of this crazy world that we live, has been, I find it quite uplifting, just to have that ability. It's humorous, and we need to have some humor and not, I think, just, you know, focus too much on the negativity, because it's very easy. We're inundated, you know, every minute of the day, if you so choose. But just looking for those stories that are more positive, and some of the lightheartedness that we've seen amongst all of what happens during this. That's been, I find, a little bit something that has given me a warm heart. So
I agree. It sure gives us the human side of what we're all going through.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that coming together and seeing that the human side, as you said.
So true.
So true.
And do you have a third, or do you want to do a good news story? Up to you.
Well, you know, I was thinking about how we met Catherine, and it was through our love of working in universal and accessible housing. We were introduced through a mutual friend, Neha. And as I was preparing for today and just thinking about everything with the business that has happened and how fortunate and hardworking all of us have been, I had to laugh, because you know, that's how we met, at a lunch at Alloy, and, you know, hit it off. I mean, my goodness, it's just been an incredible journey, and I appreciate and admire you so much. So I'm not going to get, yes, likewise. But, you know, it was one of the moments that it really came true for me was teaching my mom how to use Zoom. And my mom is legally blind. She does see shapes, but, you know, there's been a whole process of me trying to help her from a distance, as she's still in New Brunswick. We laughed so hard. And for her, I mean, you and I are used to these technological glitches. We deal with them every day, but she's 78. And, you know, after 10 minutes, she said, "Lara, this is too much. like, no. And I said, no, Mom, it's okay. We can work through this. Well, what is this long blue line with all these characters? You have to click on that, click on that. You know, so just having that ability to, even at a distance, to teach her how to Zoom so she could participate in her meetings and her community involvement, because she's very involved in her community in St. John. It just gave me that moment of, you know, we never would have had that moment and those laughs and, you know, frustration to a certain degree, but I'm very patient. So we, you know, it was a success. We made it work. And I think, you know, it just goes to show that we've all been quite fortunate, and really our generation has not had to deal with as much as other generations when it comes to crises. And, you know, we've been so lucky, and seeing how we can navigate and, you know, rise to the challenge has just been really amazing, looking at that. And just the human capital and the way that our brains just have to shift and think a little bit differently has been, I think, really great. And that for me was a highlight, just with my mom and I. It was so cute, and she made it work. So it's good. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, good.
Her. I've been trying to get my mom on it, but she doesn't have a camera, and anyway, she likes old school phone.
Yeah, and that works too. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's interesting when you can actually see them, and yeah, it's all a part of the adventure, I'll say.
I love your attitude. Anything else before we close? Any other stories or?
Well, you know, I again, just building off of that, I think that, you know, Calgary, we've been through a lot. And when I look back at my business and Ryan Murphy Construction, and the support that we've been given from the community as a whole, and just my involvement in different organizations and events, and trying to really bolster that next generation to continue forward in whatever capacity it is, whether it's being an entrepreneur or not. I finally look back at so many events that you rub shoulders with people, and we can be standing in the atrium of the Devonian Gardens. And I remember this moment with you where we were 7 or 8 women standing together talking, and you turned to me and said, Lara, every one of us owns our own business in this circle. And it's such a unique thing, and I long so much to have that interaction again. But when I think about how much I've learned and what we've been through as a business, and some of the really difficult decisions that we've been faced with over the last 2 months, you know, again, it's never in my wildest dreams did I think that, you know, I'd be faced with some of the decisions that we've had to. But in the midst of it all, there is a lot of positivity, and the community, I know will rise again. I think it's just a matter of us really trying to bolster together and look for those silver linings, and how we as a society and a community can continue to support one another, because I know that's what fills my tank. And it's a matter of, you know, I just dream for that next event where we can all be out together and talk and have that ability to really connect on a level that when you're in the same room and you take it for granted. It's kind of, it's unbelievable when you look back. And I know for you, I mean, my goodness, you're so involved. It must have been a shift. Yeah. Like, who would have thought? It's, so that part of it, I think there'll be some really innovative ways that we move forward. And I know it will take some time, and we'll do it in a safe manner, but there've been a lot of really great stories of, you know, even just being out on the path and seeing so many people out walking or running and cycling. And, you know, you see maybe 7 or 8 people that, you know, at least I do. I live in Inglewood, so it's a rather small community, but those are things that I didn't realize I took for granted, but maybe I did a little bit. And it fills my cup now more than ever, because I really long to be able to be back and see everyone and just participate and help rebuild the city, because we have a long road, and it's going to be really tough. And we have to all dig in and support one another more than ever. And I think that as we come through this, and there is a new reality, we can continue to do that and just show the rest of the country and the world that we are first class and the leaders we are, and to continue to rise to that challenge, because it will wear on all of us. And I think reaching out, talking to friends, I mean, getting that email from you to participate today was amazing. And I was actually quite nervous, because I haven't done anything in so long as far as it's this type of an interview, and it's funny how, that was not that I did so many, but in general, I realized, wow, I haven't actually been in the hot seat for quite some time. So it was good. It perspective, and just realizing again what we can take for granted, and those, how do we move forward as a group and continue. But I really appreciate that, and I know our city will rise to the challenge. And one of the other things that I do love is I found I was getting calls and emails and texts and Zoom requests from friends that I haven't talked to in so long. Just that connection, whether it be my old buddies back in New Brunswick. I had one friend, they called me and they were dressed up, and they changing their party hats, and just to make us smile. And I love that part of it. And so it has really offered connection to people that you sometimes take for granted, and you just making that extra effort has really been heartwarming, because we're all in it together. It's nothing any of us wanted or brought upon ourselves. We're all here, and we have to deal with it. And it's just there've been some great things around that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, my optimistic friend always. I knew it. I knew you could take this platform for sure. She's gonna be positive. I know it.
We have to, and I am very much so. And my brain never stops working. And I think just having a little more time to be able to sit back, and it has been quite nice in a way to reconnect with certainly being home in the evenings more than normal, and being able to pick up that book that I put down and have the next 12 books ready to read, and over the weekend getting into the gardening and
Right.
focusing on that, because we'll obviously be spending a lot more time, and just more I think the simplistic things, and thinking about really what it is that drives us all is something that I think will be better for it in the long run.
I agree with you, Lara. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're awesome.
Thank you for all you do, Catherine, and I feel it a great honor to be able to talk to you today. And you've been a guiding light for me for many years, and I really appreciate it, and all you do for the community as well. So thank you so much.
I feel the exact same way about you. Thanks for all that you do, Lara.
Yeah.
I love you very much.
I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, that was some amazing friend Lara Murphy, doing some great work with a positive attitude. Thank you so much for joining us for Cats Track. Look forward to the next one.